asking yourself that question, like this basically goes back to the first part of the conversation, is that's going to help you set the right goals, is knowing what matters.
Yes. Okay. So somebody said, I spent so much time climbing the ladder of success, I didn't realize it was leaning against the wrong building. Well, Castleview, good to have you back again. Today's episode is all about goals. Here we are, first day of 2025. And Drew, it's been quite a year. We've got you on today. Thank you for joining us again.
Yes, it's good to be here.
And I'm glad you're with us. Big year. 2024 was huge for both Resonate and Castleview.
Yeah.
Tell us what were some of the high water marks for Resonate in 2024?
Well, we definitely share one of the same things. We moved into a building, right?
That's right. That's right.
So that's probably the biggest rock for me, for Resonate Films and now Films and Studio. So here we are sitting in Resonate Studio, and it's just a kind of a small shotgun sort of studio down here in downtown Castle Rock. And
doesn't it make a difference? I mean, I know the church. It feels like we exist. You know what I mean? It's different, right? I mean, I've had my office has been in my house for 16 years. Your office has been in your house. You almost feel like you've grown up a little bit, right?
Yeah. When you have a key in your hand and you're opening, a door, it feels like, wow, I've lost the keys. All right, I've lost my responsibility. If you can't keep the keys, then you probably shouldn't have a studio.
You've gone from baby Drew to adult Drew.
Yeah.
I mean, you have grown up. That's
so
right.
we rent it out for photographers, podcasting, but then also mainly it's just a great place to get some work done. It's sometimes hard with 3 little kids getting some productive work done at home, and I'm thankful for the time that I had there. There was a time too I had a basement and everything was fine, but now I just needed a studio, and so that was probably like the biggest thing. And then also just doing other client work and really, I don't know, just building some momentum for the new year. So I'm ready to go.
You're ready
I'm
to
excited.
Go.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then. All right, this is a little controversial with people. Here we are, the beginning of the year. And I had my first pastor used to tell the church around this time of year, he'd say, listen, I'm not a New Year's resolution guy. He would say throughout the year, when the Lord exposes something to me that is not right, or maybe I need to make a change, I don't want to wait till January 1st to make that change. And I agree with that. I don't disagree with that, obviously. But don't you think there's something about a rhythm, a reevaluation? I mean, hey, let me look back on what the last 12 months looked like, and let me look forward to maybe what the next 12 months could look like. Are you a goal setter, Drew?
Yeah. Well, I agree. I agree with the sentiment from both sides, but I definitely would be on the side of, hey, it is a new year. It is a new season. I love the phrasing there, a rhythm, because that is life. You're trying to find sort of a harmony with all of these sort of opposing forces and trying to find your rhythm. And sometimes that can be done, hey, it's a new week, here we are, or it's a new month, or it's a new year. And I think what's interesting in our culture is we have a huge holiday right before a new year. We have Christmas, we have New Year's, and of course, Thanksgiving is before that. But it's like this sort of 10-day spat or this week spat of where everyone's just kind of shuts down for a bit.
Yes.
And the natural rhythm of shutting down is then, okay, let's boot it back up. And so that's why I feel like a new year with culture, journals, like all the stuff that's comes out for like New Year, new goals, New Year resolutions. The reason is because it is a natural season and rhythm. And so why not just catch the wave, catch the momentum, where you took some time off and then you're going into a new season. So the answer to that is I love getting back into the rhythm of things. So yes, I set some goals for myself.
Okay.
What about you? Are you a goal setter, or you're like, what?
Am.
Forget it.
No. I am. When you were an intern, I think we even did this when you came in as an intern. We do it with our interns now. We have them before they come for the 2 months or whatever they're with us. Hey, you need to come with some goals. And so we have them write those things down. Physical goals, mental goals, spiritual goals, academic goals. A lot of them come with things they've got to do with the college. And so here's things you want to learn. We do the physical stuff. I remember
Yeah.
the first group we had. I think it was the year before you came. We had a couple guys that, hey, we want to run every day, and they threw some goals out, 5 miles a day or whatever.
Right.
And I thought, well, I need to do this with them. This is
Yeah.
going to be good.
Yeah.
And I think we ran a mile a day.
But you did something.
But we did. We
That's
moved
what's important.
toward
Yeah.
something, right? And so no, I'm a big goal guy. I do think, by the way, that you do find maybe not New Year's resolutions in the Bible, but you do find that there are habits and disciplines
Yeah.
and goals. The Bible says redeeming the time
Yeah.
because the days are evil, buying back the time, right?
Yeah.
Paul talks a lot about putting your body under subjection. He buffeted his body.
Yeah.
And I think there is something about, no, I don't want life to happen to me.
Yeah.
I want to happen to life.
proactive.
Yeah.
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 And I think that's important as you're going into this new season, finding that rhythm, setting some goals. Is you should ask the question: is this biblical?
Yeah.
Are goals or a pursuit of an ideal or a pursuit of an object, is that something that Jesus would do? And finding those verses, I think, really helps fuel and motivate us. And I was thinking about this. As Christians, we really have a great foundation, Christ as the cornerstone. And that metaphor is kind of played out through the New Testament. And I think that's where you got to start is, other people who don't have a biblical or Christian worldview are kind of pulling from the alchemy of what's out there, the buffet of philosophies and existential, I'll take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and coming up with their own sort of worldview. Yeah. But as Christians, you have a cornerstone, you have a foundation, you have what Jesus said to do, and that's what we should follow. And I think the verse that sticks out for me is when Jesus said, laying up for yourselves treasures in heaven and not on earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where Paul says, set your affection on things above. And I think, as who Jesus was on this earth, but then also looking above and beyond, I think really helps establish your why for any goals or any ideal or any pursuit that you make on earth. And I think if you really dig your heels into the why and then the how is going to kind of sort of fill in the gap there.
Well, let me ask you this then, because you said, okay, there's this spiritual side of things. And I agree. The Bible says that life's a vapor, right? We want to steward every moment that we can. You kind of went to the late, not up things on earth, but treasures in heaven.
Yeah.
Is there any... I think a lot of people would think of physical goals when they think of New Year's, right? I mean, you go to the gym tomorrow,
right,
and it will be one of the most packed days of the year. And you go in 6 weeks, and a lot of those people have fallen off.
Yeah.
Is there a value to physical goals?
Well, absolutely, because I mean, we have our consciousness, our soul, our being, and we live in this shell that we call flesh and blood. We call it our body, and so I think too, the more I've been studying it as well. I'm not like a health guru by any means, but I think there is a harmony with those things where your mind, your body, and your soul, your relationships, and all of that, your spirit has this sort of congruency to it that they need to work in tandem. Yes. So you could be heavy, just growing in the spirit, but if you're eating junk food and you're not exercising,
you're not your best.
It's not so much like, oh, this is a sin and this is so immoral, as much as it is you're just not feeling right. And when you go, work out or get an exercise, your endorphins are going, everything just feels so much better. So I definitely think it's not like a priority in a vanity show. It's not that, but it should be a priority for one, live as long as you can, but also live as abundant as you can with the physical body that you have.
And you can't do that if you're breaking down, right?
Yeah.
When I turned, I'm 51 now. When I turned 40, I remember feeling like, it's been a while since I've really been active, and you turn around, and we had started the church, 5 years earlier, and it had been a lot of travel and a lot of time into that, and I turned around and went, you know what? I'm not as active as I want to be.
Right.
And the conviction in my spirit at that time was, I want to steward my body well enough that when I'm 65, when I'm 70, 75, whatever, I want to be able to preach with passion. I want to be able to steward the physical so that it doesn't hold me back one day. So I do think, as you said a minute ago, I think it's important Yeah, there's spiritual goals, and we need those, and there's emotional and mental and all of these relational and all these other goals. But I do think the whole body comes,
Right.
the whole being,
Yeah.
is.
And you mentioned the subjection part of things and learning how to have moderation in everything. And so I think sometimes it's very easy for exercise or diet to really get out of hand. And I feel like it's hard to walk that line of that subject, because we're all, there can be times where we're snacking up, we're eating fast food, or we're not exercising, and we don't want to act like we're like the Christian fitness people, like this is what we're doing.
Right.
But it's important to think about your health, and then not just be wishful thinking about it either, but to be proactive with it. We're not trying to win any sort of magazine covers of anything, but the point is, yes, just take care of it. Okay,
you just said something I want to ask about. It is important for us to know where we stand, right? Some of us don't have a realistic view of where we are. I think that's a huge part of this whole goal setting is, okay, who am I? What are my shortcomings?
Right.
Where am I not as good? Okay, some of the goals we might set might be managerial, leadership goals, things, you're in the workplace and you have people under you that, well, if you don't have the proper view of your strengths and your weaknesses, you're never going to be able to really address the things that you need to address. For example, I'm really great at.
Yeah.
And then the people under you go, you're not. Yeah, you're not great at that.
Yeah. So it's a problem of self-awareness.
Self-awareness, yes. How do you, maybe at the very beginning of this whole thing, how do you establish a self-awareness? How do you discover
Ask your spouse.
Yes, good. I think that's a good place to start.
That's one thing, if
there's one person in the world that will tell you the truth.
Yes, yeah. Without even asking.
Be nice, but tell me where I'm at.
But yes, one. So ask people, probably your friends, and depending on who they are and how long they've been your friend, they'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
But it's even hard with that. I think your spouse is a great place to start. And if you're not married or whatever life stage you're in, self-awareness is where it starts. I think that is, I know you talked about it a few episodes ago, where maturity is sort of the conception of maturity begins with self-awareness. And when we're talking about self-awareness, it really is just being conscious of what you're doing in the moment. And I think when you're awake and aware of, what, I probably shouldn't say it that way, or I'm getting impatient, like recognizing those things will help you combat the bad habits that you do have. And so that really is, okay, now we're beginning to set some goals. But you're not going to set a goal to be more patient if you think everything's fine.
Yeah, that's right.
So really recognizing, that having that self-awareness is key.
And don't you think it is okay to ask those even under your leadership? Last year, so 12 months ago, you talked about the 10 days, kind of this break from the year. You've got Christmas, you've got this week that you've got some time off, you're getting ready for the new year. And I was kind of chewing on this and I thought to myself, I wonder, I know how I think that I come off, right?
Yeah.
Part of it though is I know what my motives are. I know how I feel about you. So I think good things about you, but do I always come across that way? So let me ask the people that are actually under my leadership. So I texted all of our staff individually, and I said, first of all, listen, you're not going to be in trouble for anything that you say. As a matter of fact, I want you to be very honest, maybe even brutally honest with me. But I said, what is it like to be on the other side of me? What are the blind spots that I have? What are the areas that I've not resourced you well? What are the areas I'm not leading you well? What are the areas that if you could tell me anything that would actually help you about me, what are those things?
Yeah.
And I think you can do that with, I think you hit it with your spouse. I think that's a great place to start. I think close friendships. I think that's important. Hey guys, don't tell me what I want to hear right now. Tell me the truth. And I think even the people that you lead, you can have those conversations with.
Right. Why do you think it's hard for people to ask those questions to begin with?
Yeah. I don't think we want the answer.
Yeah.
I think that's
Right.
don't you? Isn't there an old leadership style that, hey, I'm in charge around here? I think things have changed. You're a younger guy. You're a good bit younger than I am. You're
way younger.
No, a little bit younger. How old are you right now?
32.
Holy moly. Okay, way younger.
So way younger.
Yeah, almost 2 decades. Okay, your generation coming up has a different leadership philosophy than my generation coming up. I'm kind of on the tail end of, hey, it doesn't matter if you like it or not, do it. I'm telling you what to do. And, and your generation values collaboration.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Openness and authenticity. But I don't want to toot the horn of my generation too much because there's always, you just see the pendulum swing, back and forth. And so you see, and what I mean by that is, it can go too far the wrong way. Let me give like an example where if you're too self-conscious or self-aware, or if people text you and say, you're a little too short, you're too short, or you're maybe not as kind in the moment or whatever. Well, one, you have to respect that person and their opinion of you. But what if they're a little bit off with their assessment? What if they didn't know the situation and the interaction? I'm not trying to defend being unkind or anything, but the way I respond to a lot of just a phrase, if someone says you're too this or too that, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to get after it. And sometimes I bring it too far the other way, where I was watching some behind the scenes footage of me directing a short film. And I remember being in the moment trying to be as kind as possible about sort of a decision that we were making on set of like, hey, we should shoot over here. And we only had so much daylight, and then we were trying to get all these shots together. And I said, we need to do this. And the first AD, the assistant director, was saying, this is that we just didn't have like a clear communication. And I watched the behind the scenes footage and I was like, Drew, you're not being a very good leader. You're not making a clear, concise decision. And so all of that said is, this is a tricky thing to navigate. On one end of the spectrum, be open and honest. Ask the questions of, where are my shortcomings? Yeah. But then at the other side of things,
you're the leader.
You got to stand up, and maybe that's more of a male role. I don't know. I think women can do the same thing, but there is like, a swing back and forth that it's constantly, you're trying to sort of walk the tightrope of just, I want to live a balanced life here. And it's difficult sometimes.
Okay, so I love what you just said, but I think what I'm saying is my generation was a little bit more, no, I'm telling you what to do. I sign the checks. You do what and that doesn't speak so much to your generation. There is I don't know if I want to say it like a massaging of, there is a collaboration. There is your generation wants a team. And so I guess the bottom line of that is we have to be aware enough, like you're talking about watching the short film. We have to be aware enough of, and I think here's a word, honesty. Yeah. Let me be honest with how I lead, and let me be honest about where my shortcomings are. And let me not just say, well, that's who I am. That's how I've always been. Yeah. No. Let's start changing the way that we are so that we can be more effective.
Right. I think that's a really good point. I don't think there's anything more obnoxious than someone saying that is someone stubborn and saying they're not going to change at all. I think I've always said pride has no ears, and I'm not calling anyone out.
Say that again.
Pride has no ears.
Is that from you? Did you come up with that?
Maybe. I don't know.
Wow, that is really good. Pride has no ears. Okay. Cannot listen, cannot hear feedback.
Doesn't listen. And I think that's a part. If you're not willing to change, you're never going to grow. And so you might as well turn the podcast off. You're probably listening to this because you want to grow. And I think, so in other words, growth starts with humility. And humility starts by listening. And so we've got to listen to what other people are saying. And so in my case, it was like you can listen to too much and then kind of go the other way. But I do think there are probably a lot of, and it could just be a generational thing, or you're just getting older and you're like, I'm just tired of growing. I'm tired of changing. I'm just the way I am. But I think there's a beauty in always, you're on a journey. Imagine that metaphor. You're always on a journey of discovery, of learning new things. And if you're 30, 40, 50, or 80 years old, there's always something to grow in, and having that hunger for that.
One word there, humility. I think that's huge. Let me properly evaluate who I am. And that always takes humility. If you're going to talk to your spouse, like you said a minute ago, That's going to take some humility
Oh,
because
yeah.
your spouse will tell you
Yeah.
where those shortcomings are.
It's going to hurt a little bit.
It's going to sting
in the moment,
but it's going to help you.
Those conversations are so good because if you can have multiple conversations like that throughout a year, you don't want to just have this time where it's just, okay, let's just talk bad about you for a minute.
Yeah.
Like those are tough to hear. They're tough to swallow. But the more you have those, the more you see, well, it's not. I think it's a big piece of the humble pie to say, you know what, I'm not taking yourself so seriously. Like, I'm not that special. I'm not that unique.
Don't you respect it though when you see a seasoned leader or someone you respect that is still learning, they're still growing.
Absolutely.
For example, in 2018, you remember this, we went to the Grange, we had our first Take the Land banquet is what we did. Remember that? We had a nice brochure. We had a meal. We showed the church the renderings for the first time of the building we're now in.
Right.
And we had Dr. Much. He pastored in the area. He's right now vice president at Pensacola Christian College. Just a really seasoned pastor. And just a very professional person, right? You look up to him. I look up to him. When I was on campus and he was there, when I was a college student, I really looked up to him. He comes out here, he preaches. We go to the B&B Cafe right down the street. It's the morning. I'm gonna take him to the airport. We had a great weekend. And I come to breakfast, and I've got all kinds of things that I need to ask Dr. Much about. Here I am. I'm only 10 years in. I'm his junior. I don't know nearly what Dr. Much knows. I mean, he's a wealth of knowledge. And I sit down, and I'm getting ready to ask him questions. And he opens up a little piece of paper, and he starts firing questions at me. And, the first one is kind of like, okay, I'll answer that, and then he fires another one out there. And after a couple, 3 questions, I'm like, Dr. Much, you don't need to ask me anything. I've got things I need to ask you. Right. And I just remember it so much because it was instructive to me that, okay, it doesn't matter how old you get. And it really doesn't even matter that he knows way more than I know about just about every single subject. Yeah. Every person can help you in different ways if you're willing to listen just a little bit.
Yeah, I think Dr. Much, that's a great example because I've been with him. He's had me at his house when I was doing a wedding for someone in his church. But I mean, just hanging around him for several hours, just a man that I could describe with meekness. And I think this applies to the conversation here is there's an essence of meekness that is missing in our culture. And I've heard the definition that meekness is power under control. And Moses in the Bible was referenced as the most meek man on the planet, basically. And I think that's very interesting because he had a speech impediment. And yet in the Bible also it says Moses was a man eloquent in words. Like, how did that happen? What's the transition there? Yeah. And I still think Moses probably reminded himself often, like, you weren't this big orator, bringing tablets down from a mountain that God spoke to you about. Like, you once were just a shepherd. You once killed a man, who was in it. You once did some bad things, and you're not very gifted and talented. Yeah. It's only by the grace of God. Yeah. And I think if we take that perspective, that lens of not taking ourselves too seriously and not being so full of ourselves, and just having a good assessment, I think that will help us evaluate and then improve upon it, but still having the confidence to move forward, to still say, be decisive and still make decisions. Yes. And so Dr. Much is a great example.
Yeah, I think there are some things. All of us have those weaknesses. Paul had them. He's got a thorn in the flesh. Moses is a great example because when the burning bush, when God speaks to him, right away he says, "No, I can't. Yeah. I stutter. I'm not eloquent of speech." And God says, "Fine. I'll give you Aaron, and Aaron will be your spokesman." And it's interesting because you read through the scriptures, and you find at the beginning, okay, God Aaron, says to Moses, and Moses says to Aaron, and Aaron goes in and says, and that changes quick. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's not long that Aaron is a spokesperson. Right. Moses is empowered by God, and we can be empowered by God to do things. Yeah. But I do think that kept him probably somewhat humble through the process. So we both agree goals are important. I think most of our listeners would probably say goals are important. And yet we often fail with our goals. I think there's probably a number of reasons why we struggle with that, but I want to talk maybe about a few of the reasons that we got good intentions. We want to do a good job. We start strong. We're in the gym on January 1st,
Right.
but we're not there February 15th.
Yeah.
We're out of the gym. And so I've got a few things written down here that I would like to talk about, maybe issues that we have. I think sometimes it's a lack of clarity or specificity in our goals.
Right. They're not measurable.
Yes.
I don't know if that's one of the points, but
Yes.
I think that's part of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Is the clarity and specificity. So like one goal that I have to read more. Well, that's okay. Generally speaking.
Yeah.
Okay. We know what he wants to do. He wants to read more, more what, more books. Okay. But having a quantifiable, measurable goal, and not to use like a quantifiable sounds scientific, but the idea is, okay, in order to accomplish reading more, at this point, we're at wishful thinking. At this point, we could just say we've scattered out a desire there. We put it on the spreadsheet of possibilities. But at this point, it's not going anywhere.
Wishful thinking. That's a good way to put it. Right now, you're dreaming.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to just start with, you start with the desire.
Here's
I want
the
to read
big
more.
picture. This is what I want to accomplish.
Right. And then from there, we make a step, and it could be whatever you feel like. And this goes into another point we'll get to in a minute, but I want to read one book a month, perhaps, or a week, or one a quarter, or whatever it is. And maybe you're a big book reader and you're like, hey, reading books is fine with me, but I need some more, maybe some self-help stuff or some Christian books, and maybe not the novels. Those are fun to read or whatever. And that's just, you don't have to be a book reader, but maybe, okay, so that's my goal.
Yeah.
So now I want to read one a month. So there's the clarity, the specification.
At some point, you have to make this, you use the word measurable. You've got to get specific. I don't want to just be a reader. I don't just want to read more books. At some point, you have to say, okay, well, every day I'm going to read for 10 minutes. Every day I'm going to read one chapter. Every day I'm going to, whatever that looks like, I'm going to spend time. I want to read the Bible this year. I want to get to know my God better. Okay, well, every day I'll sit down and read for, meet
that's
with
the
God
specificity. Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
What would be another example? Like, is there one for you?
I think the gym. I want to get fit this year.
Yeah.
Would be, I want to
look like Arnold.
Can pump you up. That's what I want to do. Okay, no, you can't. It's wishful thinking to say that I just want to lose 100 pounds or I want to get fit this year. I think the specificity says, okay, I'm going to be in the gym 4 times a week or 5 times, whatever that looks like. I'm gonna run on these days, whatever that looks like. But I think you have to get specific.
Right. What would be like another one with like one for my kids? Let's do like a practical one. Is I want to be more present with my children, and they're so 5 and under, 3 kids. What would be a good way to be specific and accomplishing that, like quantify that?
What if you said, okay, here's my issue. I'm not present. I'm distracted. And part of the reason I'm distracted is because my devices, right? Okay, so when I come home at dinner, every night at dinner, my phone and all of my devices are in my office.
Yeah.
And I don't have them sitting here. I don't have the watch dinging me.
Right.
I don't have the phone going off. And it's a reminder. Not only is the distraction gone, but it's also a reminder that, no, I'm supposed to be here right now with these kids. That's a very simple thing to do.
That's perfect, yeah.
But it's specific.
Right. And that's it. That's it. Exactly. So, I feel like that to measure that and to be specific is to just have, okay, why aren't you being present? What's the contrast to that? Well, it's probably because I'm on my phone, or a lot of times it's, here's a good one. Mentally, I could just not have a phone or anything, but I'm so engaged in business or clients, or I'm thinking about work and all of that. So a good way to do that is, I've got the studio here. I lock the keys. I get in the car. Maybe I could, I make a conscious effort to say, okay, We're done. Work is done.
I walked away from
Turn
work.
some music on, nothing self-help, nothing whatever, just boom. And you're unwinding for the next 10 minutes on the way home. Like that, they're specific. And that's how that's how you're gonna improve with that.
Having a church office has been so helpful for me in that area.
Yeah.
Because I used to not be able to turn it off, right? I mean, you're in your office all day.
Yeah.
And it was
That's
easy
difficult.
just to keep on working. You just went through it too.
Yeah.
Where it's just easy to keep on working or to pop in the office and
Right.
keep on going. But it's helpful. Another area that we struggle with is not just specificity. I think we struggle with consistency, right? I think so many of us are just inconsistent when it comes to following through with our goals. Why is that? Why do we struggle with inconsistency so much? And by the way, I think that's why we quit so fast, because I was going to do it. I was pumped about it.
The consistency is probably one of the most challenging. I think they all kind of work together, but the consistency is a difficult one because it really is discipline. And there's some other tools that I guess we could talk about with accountability and things like that, but making them achievable goals. But consistency is one of those things that if it's a daily thing or if it's a weekly thing, at some point it does come down to a little bit of self-discipline, maybe to help. It comes down to motivation. Let me take another a great goal would be to journal every day. That's daily consistency. There's nothing more consistent really than that is writing something down. So you've got it specific. I'm going to write down, 4 or 5 sentences for the day, put the date on top, and I'm just going to talk about how I'm feeling, what I'm going through, what I learned in my devotion, something like that. Whatever type of journal that you want to write, you're writing that and you're doing it daily. I think in order to be consistent, there's some other tools, but one of those is to understand what's motivating you behind that and contrasting two things. So not to get in the weeds here, but I think this really helps with fueling the motivation on a daily basis. And that is recognize the desire, but contrast that with the disaster, with what happens if I don't do this. Maybe journaling is a bad example because there's probably not two disastrous things. But let's take, for example, maybe patience. If you want, I want to be patient, and that's hard to quantify and to measure. How can I be more patient and be specific and clear with that? But a good one to be consistent with this is to contrast that with something bad. So what happens if I'm impatient? Boy, my relationship with my kids is terrible.
Yeah.
My relationship with my spouse, coworkers, whatever. I may lose my job if this escalates even more.
Yeah.
And maybe I can get by, but boy, do I want to be patient. Patience is a virtue. This is something I want. Yeah. So the more hungry you get for the desire, the more hateful or despising you can get for the disaster. So you really see these two contrasts of like, I really want to do something good, but then don't just pursue the good. Really think about, I don't want to be impatient.
Yeah, I love that whole
you.
idea.
Yeah.
Paul says, walk in the Spirit so that you don't fulfill the lust of the flesh. I mean, there's that contrast between the two. You made me think of something just now, and that is, you talked about patience. I think if we're truly evaluating ourselves for the coming year, a lot of people have started using a word for their year. Have you ever done that, by the way? Have you ever had a word that's
no.
This is my word? Okay. I did it for the first time about 5 years ago.
Okay.
My word was health. And I applied that word to every part of my life.
Okay.
I want to be financially healthy. And we'd come out here, we planted a church. Your mind is on that all the time. Church planting is not the best retirement strategy in the world. And so I thought 5 years ago, we've got to start thinking about and planning toward. And so that meant I met with a financial advisor. We started kind of looking into retirement things and we got to start planning, right? Emotionally, I want to be healthy. What does that look like? I got to have some time away. I need to take Debbie away. I got to spend time with the kids in this way. Spiritually healthy. Okay. What are my spiritual disciplines? So all year long, it was health. I'll tell you my word for this year. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
You're on the edge of your seat.
I'm at the edge, shaking in my boots.
You can use it if you want to. My word this year is simplify.
Okay.
And listen, I have a slogan for my word. Okay. I love it. You're going to love this. I have a slogan for my word. I've never had a slogan, but I got one this year.
So you're complicating your theme already.
Yes, right. But it's really good. It's simple. Here it is. Simplify. And the slogan is, don't do more, do what matters.
That's good.
And I'm finding in my life right now, I think just the season of church we're in. You know, the church has been growing. We have a facility. It's more complicated.
Yeah.
And I find myself in more meetings or tied up with different things or all these things that I've been adding to my schedule.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to decide, okay, what is it that's going to move the needle the most in my life if I adapt myself, apply myself to these disciplines in my life.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons we fail with is we put too many goals out there.
Yeah.
You know, I know I've been guilty of this. Last year, I think I had, okay, physically I'm going to do, and here's 7 things, and spiritually I'm going to do, and here's 9 things under that, and here's some things I want to accomplish, and there's a bunch of things under that.
Right.
I think that can be a mistake. I think there is something
and you slowly fade out of the momentum of that.
Yes.
And then it comes down to the next year, 2026, you know, and our relationship with goals is not very
We're
healthy.
A little sour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that didn't work out great last year.
I think I've experienced that. And I wanted, I think one, simplify, do what
matters.
What was the first part?
Don't do more.
Don't do more.
Yeah.
Do what matters. I think that's so good. I've been on the same sort of theme. Not to say that I started with it.
You could use it. You could use it.
But I feel like that is so important. And so what I focus on, is what really matters here. Yeah. Because you can churn the wheels of your energy and make all these great. It doesn't even have to be goals, just your pursuits of life. Yeah. And you could say these are noble and worthy causes, but does it actually matter and apply to your career, to your family, to your spirituality? Does that really matter here? And I think asking yourself that question, like this basically goes back to the first part of the conversation, is that's going to help you set the right goals, is knowing what matters.
Yes. Okay. So somebody said, I spent so much time climbing the ladder of success, I didn't realize it was leaning against the wrong building.
That's so good.
Years ago, Bud Calvert told me, he was here, 5 years into the church plant. And he said, Tate, you need to begin to have the mindset of doing the things that only you can do. In other words, you're the pastor, you're the preacher, you're the visionary here. There are things that only you can do in this place, but there's a lot of other things here, work of the ministry, that you've got to allow other people to do, because if you're doing everything, you're not really doing what you should be focused on, right?
I think that's difficult to navigate. I love the principle, and I think you have to start there. And the quote about, the ladder of success leaned against the wrong building definitely encapsulates my last 3-4 years of thinking about that phrase of not doing more, but doing what matters. And I've been like, am I across the wrong building? And then you get the paralysis of analysis, like maybe I should do this building, or maybe I should put it over here. But how do you feel like, beyond what we've already discussed, like we know generally as Christians, this is what God is requesting for us. But how do you ask that personally? If you're a mom, if you're a business leader, or if you're a teenager, how do you ask?
Okay, if you're a mom, I think that, and this is not easy, right? We all get caught up in the minutia of the day, right? Every mom wants the house to be clean and organized and well run and all of that. And that's a wonderful thing. And moms have an amazing ability to be able to get everything done and raise kids and have meals and whatever, do all these things. At the end of the day, though, what is going to be the thing that moves the needle? What's the thing that really matters at the end of the day? What do my kids remember about me? What do I want them to remember? Is it me yelling at them all day about the chores? Is it me yelling about them all day about that, wiping up after or cleaning up after? Or is it I want them to remember me standing at the kitchen washing dishes and doing laundry all day? Or have I carved out what really matters, the time to be able to have these conversations, the time to be able to love this, the time to be able to go and have some adventures, the time that we get to create some memories. It's not that you can neglect one of them totally, but I do think you say, okay, what is success? Well, at the end of my momhood, is my success that I had a clean house?
Yeah.
Or is my success that I've got kids that love me
Right.
and love Jesus
Yeah.
because I pointed them to Christ?
I think you laid it out so perfectly. Like, it's a great example. And I think that's why that is a testament of how tricky this can be sometimes, because you can hear a podcast and say, all right, kids, this is the goal. This is what we're going to do. These are the chores.
Yes.
Husband, get to cleaning over here, do this, and this. And we're off
Look
to the
out,
races.
Mom's rage cleaning.
Rage cleaning
Look out.
underway, sign up. But yeah, so there's that. And then, but having a healthy view of it it takes sort of a seasoned veteran to recognize, okay, we do want a clean house, but we also want to have fun and we want to enjoy the moment. We want to be present in the moment. But I can't have you painting on the walls. I can't have you coloring on the table, on the wood table or whatever.
Yeah.
So there is, we use the word balance, and I think that applies to a situation like this. And I think a great word is moderation, of recognizing order and cleanliness, but then also fun and quality time.
Yeah.
So how are we, finding a relationship with these?
Where am I at on that
components?
right now? And looking back the last 12 months, was I impatient? Was I short? Was I curt? Was I critical? What was I over the last 12 months? And how can I begin to counteract that over
Shift
the next
that,
12? Yeah. How can I work on maybe the weaknesses that I saw? It's okay. We all tend towards some weaknesses, and but I don't want to stay in that place. How do I begin to make the minutia, the little changes? Hey, I think this is a great place in the conversation to stop. We're gonna make this into 2 parts. Next week we'll finish up this conversation. But thank you for listening to the first part. Let's take this week to really start asking the Lord about what we can improve on, maybe some habit, discipline, goal that we can begin to set up in our life that'll really help us to be the believer, the man, the woman, the child of God that He wants us to be this week. Hey, thank you for listening. Make sure you join us again next week for the conclusion of this conversation.